Hello and welcome back to Custom Gamer. My name is Daz and this is the show where we talk about level design while playing cool maps. This is the fourth and final part of Baryonic Predicament by Miigga for Half-Life 2 Episode 2. Check the annotations on the screen if you missed the first three parts. Get you all caught up. So we just had a large combat segment, so the mod now shifts back into puzzle mode for a little bit. This is a fairly simple puzzle just involving breaking lasers. Again, Miigga taught us about lasers earlier, explained to us that they were extremely dangerous. So we always understand that we have to always break the beams somehow in order to proceed. And again here, Miigga's reusing a lot of old mechanics, so we've got the mirrors and the beams, so we know what we have to do, we just have to work out how to do it. So my first impetus here was to try and shoot it, but I was close, but not quite. Turns out you can just use the gravity gun for it, so there we go. Now, while I like the idea of using the gravity gun to move this plate along the wall, it can be quite finicky in how it works. The range on it with the gravity gun can be cut off sometimes while you're using it, and stuff like that can happen. I almost feel like, because you've got these green lights in the corners of the plate that you can move, perhaps it would have been nice if they changed colour whilst the gravity gun was attached to the object, just so that when it detaches you get a little bit of a visual aid there, because it was quite finicky before. Now we've got another classic Miigga wall puzzle. And this one was fairly annoying actually. It's kind of a timing based puzzle, so you have to get the watermelon. Sounds ridiculous, but you have to get the watermelon to the other side, avoiding the saw blades. And it took me a little while to do it. We're not going to watch all of this because I was here for about 10 minutes. So we're just going to skip ahead to the end in a moment here. And notice the bullet holes in the glass as we swap to the later footage here. This is a bit of rage shooting when I got close to the end a couple of times. Didn't quite make it. There we go. Now this room is really cool. Unfortunately I found a little bit of a bug with it, which I'll show you. But for the most part I love the idea of it, I love the design of it, barring the bug I found. It reminds me a lot of, what was it? I think it was the original Resident Evil where all the lasers go through that person and just kind of dices him in that corridor. It's the same kind of thing here, so it's basically a timed puzzle. I believe Miigga had something similar to this in a previous map, which involved, I think it was water that raised to fill an area and you had to kind of, climb out to avoid it. It's the same basic principle here, except you have a laser grid instead of water. So you start the button here, and all the visual language is good, so you understand that this laser is evil. Unfortunately you can just kind of hide in this alcove, and this kind of breaks the entire room, because if you stay in here, obviously the laser grid raises above you and then there's no actual way to exit the room, which is a bit of a problem. It's probably just a small oversight that the laser grid doesn't cover the entire bottom floor there. I guess a lot of players just started legging it for the top. I couldn't tell you why I decided to stop in there, I just thought it'd be interesting to see if it worked. But yeah, unfortunately you can't get out of the top. You just kind of die instantly as soon as you touch the laser grid. The timing on this puzzle is quite severe actually. You really have to kind of ace every single manoeuvre that's put in your way on the way up here. So yeah, this is where our journey ends. Okay, so let's try it properly this time. One thing that would have been nice if a little bit of kind of tension music started as well here, just to really kind of push home that this is a definite high tension situation. It seems to be a theme in this mod that there's a very definite lack of music in most areas. So yeah, there you go. The timing on it is quite tight. I mean, I thought I did fairly well there and I only just made it out the top. Now we are approaching the final arena, which is absolutely beautiful. It's probably my favourite area in the entire mod. I think I've said that like 2 or 3 times now, but just bear with me. So again, we're reusing a lot of old mechanics here, so batteries being placed into receptacles to open areas up. Nothing particularly new here, but just a slightly new slant on things. The interesting part here is that there's only 1 battery, but there's 2 receptacles. And of course, once you remove it from one, the door closes, so the puzzle is, how do I get the battery over there? I think we found the solution here. So again, this area is basically like another test, like do you remember all the mechanics I've shown to you throughout this mod, because we're going to be using them all again here. I suppose this is like the final puzzle boss, if you like. It's like in fighting games where on the final boss you have to fight all the other bosses together. Of course, got the crossbow bouncing puzzle. This one's a little bit awkward because it's really hard to judge where your bolts are actually hitting on the other side. So you just end up kind of firing randomly until you get it right. Doesn't feel quite as good as the other one where you could actually kind of aim the bounce off the wall. And of course a laser puzzle. This one is slightly different because we've never actually had to use this prism style object before. But it does kind of stand out in the environment as something very, very unique, and obviously when you're dealing with lasers, any kind of reflective or glass surface probably makes sense. Yes. That's right, just kick it, it'll go in. Go on. I love the way the laser beam changes colour when you put the device in there, just to, again, it's just another bit of visual reinforcement that what you've done is actually correct. Along with, obviously, the door opening, I suppose that's another one. It's always nice if, especially when you're dealing with such abstract concepts like this, it's always great if you can visualise it each step of the way so the player actually knows that what they're doing is correct. Especially if it's a multi-stage puzzle where the ending isn't particularly obvious, perhaps there's a few stages the player has to go through. If you can visually identify that each stage is correct as they're doing it, then that's something you definitely want to do. Oh yeah, this area, man, wow, I love it. I love the kind of central spire over there in the corner. And this is the unique mechanic for this arena. So I did talk about a little bit about this earlier. But this arena is absolutely fantastic. It's again, it's another very long fight. It's another kind of war of attrition, I suppose. You could argue that perhaps, like the other arena, it does perhaps go on a little bit too long. But I really feel like the addition of this secondary mechanic really, really helps the pacing here. Because the player's always kind of working out, how long can I stay in this area without taking damage? And then, how long is it going to take me to get to the next power-up receptacle? And you're always kind of trying to time it so that when you get to these things, they're active, because there is a timer on them when you activate them. Spell. I don't know, maybe it's like a minute or something? 45 seconds? And it's a great way to actually get the player to move around the arena and not just sit in a corner, you know, tanking damage. Because if you don't use these supply canister receptacles, then you're not going to make it, because there's just so many enemies. It's a really neat idea. I love the presentation of it as well. It's very, very Miigga-like. It suits the mod entirely. You can imagine a mechanic like this in a typical Half-Life 2 map would just be like I don't know, like rebels pushing supplies down from up above you so that they land around the arena, forcing you to move around. Miigga has his own unique slant on it here, which just falls in line with the rest of the mod entirely, which I really, really like. So I love the use of all the different multi-leveled areas here, makes it much more interesting to fight in. This was something that was lacking a little bit in the last big arena we fought in, along with the pacing issue that one had. I think honestly, if I'm honest, I think this one is again a little bit too long, but it's nowhere near as bad as the last one. It actually feels interesting, because you're always moving around to collect new supplies just to stay alive. So there's always this tension in the environment, like can I survive long enough? If you take too much damage in a short space of time, you're going to use up all of the supply canisters and you're going to be in a world of trouble. So there is some enemy variation here as well. We get some more hunters coming in later on. They kind of used like a final wave in this arena, I guess. So I think some more enemy variation could have helped here as well. And again, I think the same comments still apply from the first arena, where some changes in the environment over time would have been great as well. It's less of a problem here, but it still would have been nice to see. Like perhaps the Combines start sabotaging the supply dispensers so that you have less of them over time, increasing the difficulty. Perhaps you can even interrupt that process. Perhaps they start firing at the dispensers and you can kill them before they destroy it. Could have been an interesting idea. So this fight goes on for a really long time, so let's just skip ahead a little bit. So here we are, this is the final wave of hunters that come in. This gets fairly tricky, and I kind of got caught down here in the very bowels of the arena with hunters on all sides, which is never a good situation. Luckily somehow managed to fight my way around these guys. I've used up a lot of the supply dispensers here as well, so I'm panicking just a little bit. It's a nice difficulty spike at the very end. There's a supply canister there that I basically hardly ever used. I didn't realise it was there. And that is that. Again, the music just kind of stops, so it would have been nice to have some kind of proper climax to it, or a fade out or something. Then we get the flashing light telling us to continue. So it's a great end to the mod. It's a really fun arena fight. Again, my only criticism again is probably that perhaps it's just slightly too long and lacks a little bit of variation in enemies, but still incredibly enjoyable. And that is basically that. Got some excellent extra music here. I really like this extra, it's fun. So yeah, that was Baryonic Predicament by Miigga. Now overall, I really enjoyed it. The presentation of all the different puzzle elements was really good. The only real puzzle that I had a problem with was the puzzle in the large room after the very first laser puzzle, where you had to find the various components to create that lever, and there was that round one hidden in the water. That took me ages to find. That was quite irritating, but aside from that, the rest of it was great. Presentation was great. The visuals are beautiful all the way through. Again, Miigga's very distinctive style. I really enjoyed this mod, and I'm definitely looking forward to what he pumps out next. So, I will see you next time, guys.